Hello all, welcome back to Words and Pictures for a few minutes of fun. And today I just wanted to show you the minutes of fun that I have with a very simple upcycled or recycled substrate. These little sets are all created with little tea bag sachets. So those tea bags you get that come in little paper sachets, never throw away the paper sachets, because all of these here, these little sets, are created with those as the substrate. And I thought it might be fun to just take you through the process for one of those. You can put almost anything on top with those little collages. Sometimes I use these Tim Holtz silhouette birds, which I absolutely adore. And they make a lovely little thing. You could pop little things into the pockets if you wanted to. Sometimes the mini paper dolls come into action with a little bit of collaging. They're very frequently taking their place. Those tiny little Tim Holtz Idea-ology labels that I'm often talking about, these ones here, turn up more often than not. A few more silhouette birds. You can go colourful if you want to. That's got a bit more going on in the background. But the ones I thought I'd share today are possibly some of the simplest. A little layered stamping in the background, a little bit of inky colour, and then the very simplest of collaging with some of those flower outlines that you can pick up pretty much anywhere. So let's get started, because otherwise this is going to end up being another extended edition of a few minutes of fun. It's time to play with some tea bag sachets. And here we are. I've cleared the decks a little bit, and I've taken the liberty of getting a bit of a jump start on the first layer, because it's really not complicated. I've got some gesso here, and it's just a question of giving these little tea bag sachets a coat of gesso. I'm perfectly happy not to fully cover them up, because it's layered collaging. Why wouldn't you want that extra little layer behind? But if you're finding the colour is a bit much, then by all means, once it's dried, you can give it a second coat. Obviously you need to let it dry in between, or you can dry it with a heat tool. But at this stage, you can see I'm not being careful, I'm not being precious. It's just a loose covering to go over the top of these tea bags. And yes, your fingers are going to get a bit mucky. I have seen crafters wear gloves. If that's your thing, go ahead. I like the feel of paint on my fingers. I like getting a little bit messy. For me, that's part of the fun. That's back to that sort of childhood thing of paints and sand pits and mud pies. The mess is part of the fun. So you can put on that first layer, let it dry, or dry it, come back if you feel like it needs a second layer. That's your choice if you want to put that second layer on there. And then obviously the back needs doing as well. I quite often unfurl the flap so that I can get at that first half when I do the front, or you can do it when you get to the back. Just watch out it doesn't seal itself, because the gesso as it dries can act as a little glue. If you want to use those pockets, you might not. Some of them I have used as little sort of gift wallets. But if you're not bothered, don't worry about that pocket getting sealed up. If you do think that that's something you're going to maybe want, just make sure that you allow it to dry with the flap open and out of the way, because the gesso as it dries can act as a little bit of a glue. You can usually get it open. So when you've done both sides, both halves, you might want to go back in for a second coat on the back as well. Let's have a look. Yeah. So I don't think you need to see me finish these off. I'm going to dry those, do the second coat if I want it. There you go. Mucky fingers, always the sign of a good time. I'm going to finish those off, dry them off, and then come back and we can do some stamping and inking. And here they are, messy, imperfect, but ready to play. That imperfection will add to their beauty in the long run, as far as I'm concerned. I sometimes think the desire for perfection or to get things right can really slow us down at the craft table. or stop us coming here at all. And that to me is the only thing that would be wrong. There is no wrong with this. There's playing, and the results you get are the results you get. In honour of spring, I thought I would add a little bit of inky colour before I go any further with stamping and things. So I'm going to put these a little closer together. You can see I've unfolded the flaps, which just means I'm going to work on the whole front surface at once. I've got broken china distress spray stain, and I've got speckled egg, the distress oxide spray, which I'm just going to give a quick shake to. You can hear the ball rattling around in there. No need in here because this is a dye ink. It's already mixed. This has got pigment in, especially that lovely chalky oxide pigment, which gives it its beautiful opacity and also an amazing beauty to it when you add water. And rather than spray these, which would get me oodles of the stuff, which I don't want, sometimes I just like just the gessoed background, no inkiness at all before I go to painting. I'm unscrewing the top. There's a little bit on here, and then I'm just going to tap to get some speckles of that going down onto the tea bag sachets. So you can see that arriving, quite subtle, just a bit of the speckled egg. I don't want to overload these with colour because I want the final elements to be the things that shine, not the backgrounds. Backgrounds are backgrounds. They're supposed to stay in the background. And then if I want this inky splatter to just have a bit more presence in places, then water is my ally in that. So there's just a little paintbrush dipped in water here, and I can just apply that to some of those speckles, and you can see immediately that those distress inks, reactive with water, just bloom. It moves. The ink plays with the water and just decides to shift around. It's utterly random. I'm not hitting all of those speckles. Some of them are staying little, some of them are staying really quite dotty. I glance at it, I see what I've got, and I decide I want a bit more of the speckled egg involved. Tap on a bit more, tap on a bit more, and now when these hit the water droplets, they're going to spread out by themselves. I'm not going to have to do anything. I think that's enough. I want to set that, and so the way to set it is to dry it. So heat tool comes out, just gently over all of them, a couple of inches away from the surface. If there's too much water, simple as, take it off. If there's a splotch of ink that you don't like, simple as, take it off. While it's still wet, that's all possible. Even once it's dry, you can, with some water, get it to move again. Distress inks and oxides are not permanent. They will remain reactive with water. Some of them are quite highly staining, so the reds and the oranges and the pinks you might not be able to get rid of completely, but the blues and the greens, by and large, you can pick up. You can see where it's not mixed with the water, I've still got quite deep pigment. Even that I can soften with a little dab of the paper towel. And so that's just a lovely, gentle bit of spattery, inky background. The backs of these are not necessarily the interesting thing, but don't want to leave them out, so you get to see that process happen again. Here we go. So I'm just going to give an extra little shake to that oxide, make sure I'm getting my chalky pigment out. Move these nice and close together so I'm not losing ink in between. Tap, tap, tap. There's ink on the end of the spray nozzle. Tap, tap, transfers it to the tea bags. I hope that's showing on camera. They're quite little splatters, these ones. If you've got a bit more ink on there, if you manage to get it out with lots of ink on, you'll get slightly bigger splatters. So putting that on, that's the speckled egg, and then a bit of the distress ink, broken china. This is the back, and in fact these top bits are going to be the inside, so they would only show if I were using these as gift tags and gift pockets and somebody opened the middle. Again, just a brush, dipped in water, just touching it to those spots and spatters in places, not all of them. If you like, you can go with a water spatter as well. It'll hit some of the ink spots and not others, so you'll get even more random inkiness to enjoy. Randomness, organic, self-inking backgrounds are really my favourite thing to do, because I don't have to worry about being the one in control. I don't have to create perfection. It's not about me, it's about the ink and the dye and the pigment and the water coming out to play. A few minutes of fun, and I get to watch it happen. I get to watch the fun, and again drying it. So once these are dry, I'll be back again with some collaging. Stamping first, then collaging. See you in a sec. They're dry and ready for a bit of simple stamping. You could press them under a book overnight if you wanted them all flat and a nice easy playground, but I'm not that kind of crafter. I like the bumpy imperfection of them just as they are. I have folded over the flaps at the back again because as I'm collaging, this is the size of my canvas. You don't want that bit there as well, because that's not how it's going to look. We'll come to the backs. And I've got these wonderful field notes stamps from Tim Holtz, lots of glorious little labels and details, anything that is just a little bit of text or a little bit of numbers, some postmarks, those kinds of things. And I'm also going to use one of my all-time favourite stamps. It's so much of a favourite that it's not even in its packet anymore. It's just here in a basket on the desk. This is from a Rubber Dance set called Weed Love. And I think you'll see quite quickly why it is that I love it. I think we might do this in Olive Archival. So as with all rubber stamps, I just need an acrylic stamping plate, press it down. This one I've used so often, and it has got a bit mucky on the backside, so it doesn't always stick beautifully to the acrylic stamp. I need to make sure that I've been quite firm with it to make sure that it does. And because these are quite small substrates, I can sort of get two in one go. So if I go along this crease, I can save time, stamp both of them in one go. Straight away, I've got my Weed Love going on both. So let's do that again over here. Stamp, stamp, stamp. Ink, 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 first of all. That's the Olive Archival, giving us that lovely spring green. I might angle it slightly this time. Yeah. Different kind of vine going across there. Let's do these two. And this, you know, this isn't going to be the only appearance Weed Love puts in on this channel. I can guarantee it. It's just a lovely, delicate little stamp to create that lovely, organic, random nature. Tilt in the other direction. So we're just creating variety across our set, our series. It's something I've not talked about much yet here. I talk about it often over on Instagram, where I share a lot of work. Working in sets and series is a creative habit for me. I love working with a collection, whether it's a pair or a trio or a quartet, or as seems to be the case with the tea bags, I don't know why, they seem to want to happen in sixes. It's just the way it is. So you can see I'm now pairing up in the other direction, and I'm stamping rather than all the way up to the top of the substrate. I'm just choosing to stamp down in the corner. But again, I'm getting two at a time. It's just a time saver. It's a few minutes of fun we're supposed to be having. And then I'm going to turn them over and just give each of them a little corner of Weed Love. Probably, yeah, maybe. So this time I won't have them sort of next to each other. I'll go across up and down. That means, yeah, beautiful. Happy with that. Let's go again here. And if you've not got time at the craft table, I find a series is a really good way to explore and experiment. because you can change things as you go from one to the next, you can improve as you go, rather than working on 6 projects in a row. You've got 6 tiny little projects right here to try things out on. But there's also something for me very satisfying about variation and repetition. It's part of what I think of as the visual poetry of what I create. They are the same, but they are different. Those elements reappear and dance across the area, and yeah, that is a form of creativity that makes me really happy. Variation and repetition, or repetition and variation. So you can change the order things happen in, and it changes their mood or their atmosphere. Plus they then also look really nice all as a set. So that's a little bit of flower stamping just in the background. And I think now what I want, as I said, is maybe a little postmark, something like that, to just add a more graphic element, I suppose. I don't need a giant stamping plate for this one. It'll go on there. And I think probably just in a neutral, again, a fairly subtle neutral, because I don't want it stealing focus. That's maybe a phrase from the theatre. Stealing focus is when you're supposed to be a background character and you are doing something so interesting in the background that the lead actor, who's probably trying to do a speech or get our attention, is what we call upstaged. Something more interesting going on upstage than centre stage, where we're supposed to be looking and distracting the audience. So I don't want this stamp to distract the audience. I just want it to offer a little bit of detailing. I think you can probably see that I'm moving my stamping around. It's in a slightly different place on every stamp. What have I not done yet? Down, right, up, left, down, right, down, left. Okay, so we could do another sort of leftish one maybe here. And yeah, that's layered over the Vine Love completely in some. It's barely touching the Vine Love, Weed Love in others. I think of it as vine. The stamp set is called Weed Love. And then I think, do we want a bit of that on the back as well? Yes, why not? So turn it over. And let's go. I'm going to go across the flap on a few of these because that makes me happy. I don't know why it makes me happy. But you can see all of these are partial stampings. And again, that's just about creating a little bit of visual interest. The eye doesn't even really register properly what it is it's looking at. It just knows that there's something ticklish, a detail that is just fun to see. Do we want something else? I sort of feel the urge for maybe one more stamp, maybe something even more number based. I quite like that. That 3043 is calling to me, or maybe the receipt one there. No, I think it's this one. I think we want some slightly larger numbers. So again, people often ask, how do you decide which colour to use, which stamp to use? The answer is unsatisfactory, I'm afraid. I look, I see what calls out to me, and I suppose it calls out to me because that's the mood I'm in, or I've got lots of organic and I'm looking for something textual or textural, something with text, something with numbers. And again, I'm just going to balance this. I've got out, what is this? Potting soil. So it's a sort of grey brown. Again, I'm going to move these so that they're in different places on each envelope. I don't know how it's going to work out, but it'll be fine, whatever happens. Just dive in, stamp. Just do it. There's a reason that was a very popular marketing slogan. It has a potency, and then I might just go for half numbers on the back. So there's a 30 there, there's a 30 there, you maybe get a 43, you maybe get 30 going in the other direction, you maybe get a 43. Oh no, you might, oh yes, no, you could have a 43 if I go that way. I'm not stopping to think. I'm not. I promise I'm not. There we go. Utterly random, but to my eye, utterly delightful. I'm going to wipe up that mat, get some of that ink off because it just gets in the way of my eye seeing clearly what's got to happen next, and I'll be back with the final stages. I've laid out a few collage possibilities and I'm ready to play. This will be very simple collaging because I really like these backgrounds. I've arranged them so that the numbers are moving pleasingly to my eye. They're kind of tumbling downwards in this direction, kind of going upwards in this direction. And that's, again, just something that I enjoy doing, to just start that process of repetition and variation before I get to the collaging. People ask, how do you know which stamp to use? How do you know which colour to use? I don't know. I have an impulse and I try it. And sometimes I get what I expected from that impulse. Sometimes it's not what I expected, or it doesn't feel right. And then I might leave those aside and carry on with something else for that day. Or sometimes it just takes the project in a whole new direction. One that I didn't plan, but that I end up loving even more than what I maybe had vaguely in my head to start with. So I'm just going to start by laying a couple of these flowers into position. I've also got some butterflies here, which I didn't expect to have on the table at this point, but they're here, and so let's see what they might do. These two purples are very similar, so I don't like them being so close to each other. Also, this flower is bigger, so I'm just swapping them around so that to my eye creates a more pleasing journey through those tags. I think, oh, see, I think we might be going to have some butterflies on these tags, on these teabag sachets. Who knew? So that, maybe that one, maybe, because they're repeated, so 3 different ones. That's a very delicate butterfly. Positioning wise, he's up so he can go down. He's sort of middling. That one's going in that direction. That one's over that side. That one's through the middle. This flower has not really got quite enough presence at the moment for me. So maybe I can add, and I think that one's going to be too much. No. See, it's trying, it's looking, and it's sometimes deciding no. Oh, quite like the forget-me-nots. They're a different shade of blue to the other things that are going on flower-wise, but these butterflies are all slightly different shades as well. I'm sort of wishing this butterfly had a bit more presence. Maybe that's just a question of swapping over in terms of positioning. So again, I'm just going to have a look. No, I like this one up here in the middle. Yeah, something like that. And then I think what I might be going to deploy are some of these lovely little snippets. The Idea-ology ephemera packs from Tim Holtz. This one is Conservator or Curator. It has these gorgeous tiny little labels. The snippets, number fragments, what do they call themselves? Number snippets, number labels, whatever it is. They're all sort of horizontal little labels. So they're really nice in terms of architecture because they all have a similar shape. I'm not really looking at what's written on them, to be honest. I'm just seeing if I like them in position. That one's too long. That one there, maybe. Related to the butterfly. And yeah, again, the positioning is fairly random, but then I look. Fairly random, but then I look and I see if it's pleasing me or not. And if it's not, then I move it. If it is, I leave it for now. It might change its impression as something else gets added somewhere else. So now I've got 2 of those positioned in similar places, one above each other, which is not ideal, just as the eye travels around. So if that's over there, oh well, maybe this one could just go over the top of the flower. That's quite nice. That's sort of tucked behind, that's a little bit tucked behind, that's there. And I think I do want just a little extra label on each of them. So let's pick out a couple of these. Really, I mean, these are really tiny. They're mostly sort of pharmacy labels, apothecary labels, those gorgeous vintage delights that just, yeah, make my vintage loving heart quite happy. They come in all sorts of colourful shades. I have used the colourful ones quite often, but sometimes I want vintage muted shades, so those are the ones I pulled out today to play with. This label here is not making me happy at the moment. I just don't like the font on it. I don't mean that I don't like the font on it ever. It might well work on a different project, but just here, just now, it's not making me happy. So I'll change it out and see if that works better for me. And sort of somewhere where I've got a pale number snippet, I'm looking for something slightly darker in terms of the second label. Where I've got a light number snippet, or where I've got a dark number snippet, then I can get, you know what I mean, lighter, darker, contrast for the eye. I got muddled up in my lighters and my darkers there because I was thinking about the labels and not thinking about what I was saying. Yep. Yeah, for now that seems good to me. So I'm going to glue those down and I'll be back. It's only fair to show you just one of them being stuck down. Positioning is always likely to change just a little bit as you glue, just because even the simple act of picking the thing up and putting it down again will mean it lands up in a slightly different place. That's fine. Sometimes they end up in an even better place than you'd originally had them in. Sometimes they don't. And again, I just live with that. That's all fine. And down they go. So this is a glue with a really fine applicator nozzle. I love it for that reason, but otherwise it's just a plain acrylic glue, white glue, that will dry transparent. So these clear stickers, even though you're putting glue on the back of them, stickers, they're not stickers because they don't stick. You need to put glue on, but the glue that you use should be translucent, transparent, so that you're not going to have lumps of white glue sticking out everywhere. On the backs, I will probably just leave it, I think. I like the simplicity of the back. And you can see these flower stems are sticking out. At the moment, that's not bothering me. If it did bother me, it's as simple as taking a scissor to it and trimming it off. But at the moment, I sort of quite like that random extra bit. Being me, words and pictures, I want some words. I've got this little book of small talk stickers. Again, it's Tim Holtz, it's Idea-ology. I could use some of my word stamps, stamp those, cut little snippets out. The chief decision with this set, as you can see, the stickers come in white and in black, is going to be just to decide whether on here we prefer the white or the black. So quite often I'll take one that I don't feel like I'm ever going to use. Well, there's already one loose here that's actually got a bit ripped, so we could just pop that down to have a look. Do we like white? No. No, no, I already know I don't want these quotes in white. So let's flip to the black pages. And again, it's this is a serendipity thing. Sometimes the right quote just pops out at you. You can see I've tried them and rejected them in the past. They don't necessarily want to stick back down. Look there, look on the bright side. Let's have that one. It might go there. I'm not sticking it down yet. I'm just laying it down. I feel so lucky. I do. So let's try that one. Maybe there. Let's try. See, look on the bright side, just jumped out at me again. So that's clearly meant to happen. Be authentic. Very important. There's no point trying to pretend to be someone you're not or something you're not or whatever it is. Just be who you are and find an accommodation for that. Remember the now. Being in the moment, utterly crucial. In theatre, at the craft table, you can see I'm already starting to shift these around. I'm starting to be, ironically, a bit bothered by Look on the Bright Side, just because it's longer than all the others. So I think it might be going to bite the dust. Back in the book, you can sometimes get them to stick back down and stay put. What else? Live in the moment is kind of the same thought as remember the now, I suppose. So yes, why not? And embrace the journey. I do love these little phrases sometimes. I mean, one of the reasons I created my word stamps was because I wanted access to some more poetry, as in poetry, philosophy, deeper, longer thoughts to add to my artwork. So those are the stamp sets I created with Paper Artsy to start with. But sometimes you just need a little phrase. And be you bravely is another little one. And I do mean little, so all of these are only 3 or 4 words. In fact, be authentic is 2 words. So now, again, I'm looking at the positioning and just trying to let them happen in slightly different places. I'm keeping them related to these labels and stickers that I've already got in place so that they've got a relationship to those as I put them down. But I'm also trying to make sure they travel across the surfaces to slightly different places. Down here in the bottom row, it's working really nicely. These are all a bit too similar, so it might be a question of shifting this one up a little bit. That doesn't work. Down a little bit. Maybe down is the answer for that one. And maybe this one could come up. Be authentic at that side. Can you be authentic over there? Not quite. Right in the middle, or maybe over this side. Aha, there we have it. So although these are stickers and they are sticky, they're not necessarily fully sticky enough to stay put. So I'm going to give those a little stripe of glue as well and press them down, and I'll be back to share a final little montage. As a final finishing touch, I am going to give them just a little spatter of white paint. This is my scraggy paintbrush that I do my paint spatter with. I generally have on the desk an almost finished pot of white paint that I dip into, grab a bit of water, and then it's tap, tap, tap. I tap off the project to start with just to see what size spatter I'm getting, and then it's just over it goes. And in winter, that can be snow and ice. In summer, I feel like it's pollen. But mostly what it is another bit of random organic movement, something that just catches light, catches the eye, and makes everything feel a bit freer, a bit less perfect, if it was perfect in any way, shape or form. Sometimes I'll scrape that back into the paint pot, but for the most part, that's probably it. So I think, I haven't counted the minutes, but I'm guessing this has been, again, a slightly extended edition of A Few Minutes of Fun. But I hope you've enjoyed seeing those teabag sachets turn into a beautiful little set and series. I'll be back with a little montage so that you can just enjoy them with a bit of music. But in the meantime, I hope if you've enjoyed that, you'll share a thumbs up, maybe share some thoughts in the comments. And of course, if you haven't subscribed, it would be amazing if you would join us on this Words and Pictures journey. Thanks so much for your company today. And now go off and have a few minutes of fun yourself. Happy crafting all.